Hello, beardlings and other creatures fond of stout drink and industry. Welcome to the graphical update of Dwarf Fortress. So, they have recently released a fantastic update documenting how the new graphical system is coming along in the premium version of Dwarf Fortress that's going to be released on Steam. And between that and a few features I noticed in the last update, I just had to address and point out some of the details to you fine folks. Because if some of you are on the fence about it, or that sounds like it's nice, but maybe aren't thinking about how amazing this is, or just anything else, just the ground, I want to say groundbreaking, just the amount of detail that's already going into this, and they're still working on it, is just fantastic. So first up here, we have not the latest update, admittedly, but the update from before that, where they talked about the graphical system. And I just want to address, I've got this in Photoshop, I just want to address how they're doing graphics. Which is, as it already stands, we have the tile pack, and it just replaces the sprites. It just replaces the ASCII with the text in detail. However, with the revamp that they are doing, they're pushing the boundaries. They're experimenting with things, and they're seeing how far they can push it. First of all, if you weren't aware or did not have the count, I'll zoom in so the squares pop up. Hopefully this shows up in YouTube. If you wish to do the pausing and counting just to confirm that I'm not lying to you, this is a 32 by 32. It is 32 squares by 32 squares, about on average. And I say about on average because there's going to be some important details coming up. But first of all, just the amount of detail going into a lot of this sweet amazingness. There are rules that apply to hills. That is one of the sticking points in regular Dwarf Fortress that a lot of new players have issues with. I will address that in the next picture, but just note, I noticed it there. There are some things I will be coming back around to that. But how sprites work with terrain. Right here, we see a carpenter's workshop next to some piles of wood, next to a wall, next to terrain. All terrain is done by a straight-on view, like regular Dwarf Fortress, but all sprites are being meticulously done at the 32 by 32 from a isometric viewpoint. I think it's dead on isometric, not slanted or like that. I believe the creatures are slightly slanted. But the objects you can interact with are done at a bit of an isometric. They look like they have depth to them. This looks like the front, the back isn't far enough. That is further back. Everything looks like it's at a slight slant away from you. Just to make everything pop out a bit from the terrain no matter what, because it has a different perspective, even if you yourself did not notice it. I would like to point out, fantastic detail, and I'm hoping to keep this with the rest of them. I'm loving this, that they are very meticulously making sure that it's the tables and other such tall objects that are standing out as the areas you can't build. As I mentioned in my videos before, when you're building a workshop, you have to keep an eye out for those dark green X's. Those dark green X's are where, when the workshop is built, you will be unable to walk through. In this case, what you're unable to walk through is going to be the tall tables, and this seems to get duplicated in other workshops. This is just the carpenters, though. That's not much to work with. Why are you not? It's because I'm clicking the wrong button. There we go. We go over here to the masons. We can see a bit more. I'm talking about a mason has the dark green squares, middle on the left, and then upper right and middle on the right. Table, can't walk there. Naturally makes sense. Everywhere else has its own ground texture. Yeah, you have some blocks here. You have a work in progress being chiseled out there. Same thing happened for the carpenter's workshop over here. Where you can walk, you can easily see the texture. Everything else looks like it's below a table or some things. So visually, you should just be able to understand that the dwarves cannot walk there. Between the wood, we see here on the stone, there's some slight shading, and you can see the top bit looks brighter, kind of almost looks like it's leaning a bit away from you. There's a not really 3D effect. Again, isometric. And we have the same thing on the doors. We're not looking down at the top of the door. We're looking at the front of the door, whereas the wall, we are clearly looking straight down on. Now, this is what I wanted to bring out before we got into the latest, because this is going to be important with the creature, is we have this sprite that they did for the metalsmiths. Side thing, what I was just talking about, the two areas you can't walk in a metalsmith is middle left, middle right. That's where they put the two big things. Makes sense. You cannot walk there. You can walk on everything else. One, as it's being built, they have what appears to be a fantastic loading bar going down on the bottom. This, by itself, should already be just, oh my God, I did not know I needed this in my life. How many times when trying to do a wall or a workshop or something, it gets suspended, something happens. You're like, man, please go. You have to hit K sometimes if it's getting cancel spammed by water. You know, you look at it to see how complete it is. Is this worth committing to? They have a loading bar at the bottom. You can see how close you are. You don't have to be hitting K in. As such a little minor thing is going to save everyone tons of time in the long run from having to go into reading the item description or the workshop description and going back out just to see the progress of its build. You can just get it. But this right here, and this is going to come in play, the last picture, I want to point out, they have gone above and beyond what the tile is. This workshop at Metalsmith is a 3x3, but you can see above it, they have gone 19 pixels into the terrain above it, with 13 still being left there. What this allows it to do is this gives them more depth to it because it looks like you can finally see a furnace that they're smelting the metal in, not a furnace, but yeah, I mean, technically there'd be a furnace in a metalsmith too. It's just not the furnace where they shape the metal, they forge it into what they need to do. They have the bellows on the left. It looks like that there's something they could be interacting with if they were standing here or here. It provides context. It provides natural organic story. You can see what they're working with. But it also means someone could, if there was no wall here, be walking behind it. It is most of the way up because this should be essentially a wall. This is a big machine. Normally you can't just walk through them, but in Dwarf Fortress is Dwarf Fortress. So it's 19 tall, which means if someone's behind it, you could tell that the workshop is in front of it, but also not tall enough to stop the creature behind from showing through. Or in this case, the wall. You can see what is behind it. They're able to get extra territory, I'll say. They're able to get extra graphical territory by going outside the limits of what is supposed to be there graphically. Instead of it just being a 3x3 grid and you draw in those squares, they are literally drawing outside of it with transparency so you could see behind this fence, essentially, this guide rail. If there was, I almost kind of wish that they had decided to have a creature here so we could see the creature through it as opposed to terrain, but the fact we can see the wall, you know, it is there. It's just great. It adds depth to every Z level, just these weird little additions that I did not know I needed in my life, but I definitely do now. We have a picture where they decided to show off the fact that they are building into the new engine. When they announced this up top, they pointed out that they have more than 16 colors, which is something that it's not like you're just going from like, oh, Sega way back when, like, oh, we're going above 16 bits. If you look at your color system, you have 16, 256, and then like an ungodly amount. They have true color, high color, so on and so forth. Going above 16 doesn't just bring you up to like, say, 20. It sounds like such a simple statement, but it is a massive, massive upgrade to the fidelity of the graphics, which I think, if nothing else, even if you end up not like everyone should be buying this. When this is released on Steam, everyone right now, pause the video because you're going to be coming back. Go to Steam if you haven't, wish list it, and then come back. All right, everyone wish listed this. Let's continue. So we're going on here real quick to point out, one, they have transparencies. They have the multi-Z layer view that's normally with DF Hack and some of the other graphical settings. You have to kind of mod it to get it this way. Text will be text or some other things notwithstanding. To get it to do this, they're already saying from the beginning, look, we've already got this working. And I've deconstructed the GIF to show it in detail. But before we get onto that, I want to point out this hill system. Because I've been looking at this hill system, and it's not just, oh, that looks nice. It is fundamentally and subconsciously the greatest update to these hills that could have ever happened. Perhaps they'll make it even better. I'm not saying this is already complete, but what they are working on has already set the foundation, just like 2 or 3 rules that make it so much easier to understand. If everyone remembers, even like ASCII, it's just an up triangle, down triangle. Mod packs sometimes try to work with it. It naturally blends over to a side, but you do with what you can. Like I said, they're going a little above and beyond with this, which is fantastic. Rule 1, sunlight comes from the northwest. We've kind of had this before in some of the texture packs, but this is a rule that they have put in, even if they are not announcing this, and this is key to how a bunch of this is going to work. Sunlight comes from the northwest. Number 2, if it is a line connecting to a high point, it is light, i.e. it is the top of an A. If it is between two things sloping down, it is a high point, it gets a slightly brighter line. If it is the bottom of a V, if it is at the bottom of two hills going up, it gets a dark line. So in this case, we see, I'll zoom out a little bit, I don't want the grid line here. Come on. Here we see, again, that line, because it is connecting to a top position from a neutral position. On this one point, the light comes from northwest, the shading is to the southeast. Almost the exact same hill, just that is connecting the two high areas, has a dark line instead that naturally goes with a shaded northwestern corner and a lit southeastern corner. Just these two hills alone, essentially doing the same thing. It is a diagonal hill, mostly from northeast, going to southwest. But you can pick out, just because of that rule, where the walls and where it is you're able to climb up with this are. That's just already simple enough as it is. If we go over here, we see that it connects to two ramps going up. It is a high point. It is a high point. This one kind of shares a shade, so it's not quite as bright. They're still working on it a bit, but you can tell that it goes up, and you can see within a tile that this is essentially a down area. You can just tell that you're not going up. This is shaded because the sun's coming from the northwest. This gets a bit of light. This gets some as well. And this is the high point. It goes up. There's an area down here, which is the perfect culmination of this, where they have two highs and two lows. They have essentially the end all be all. This is like the most extreme one of these squares can look like, as far as I'm aware. Whereas you have two high points that are opposing each other. You have to represent two high points opposing each other, and the two opposite corners are low. And we can see here, following the rules, high point, bright line, high point, bright line, low point, dark, and the shade, the sunlight comes from the northwest, so it's shaded to the southeast. So you can already tell that this is going up that way, is going up that way, is going up that way, and is going up that way. Or you can just go straight through on a bottom area. Or if you're going from here to here, you have to go down and you have to go up. And at the bottom area, they even have the dark line and have a little bit of shade, so you understand where that is. Bottom areas, wherever there's a lot of shade, tend to have a darker line. It's not quite as pronounced as, say, some of the top areas, but they have a darker line. So pointing down would be completely shaded, as we see here, and it has a dark area. Pointing right, because the sunlight's coming from the northeast, should have the same shading. And we see it does with a darker area to the southeast, to the east. Now, this is a bit maybe muddied to tell, so we'll go over to what they had used for a GIF. And we see at the first frame of the GIF, we see what I'm talking about. The top area is smoothly colored. Bottom area has got this teal overhang to it, but you can already see the lighting through it. We can see the dark line, the dark line, the dark line. I can tell that this is a ramp that goes right, left, and north, and is on even terrain going south. We can already see that from multiple Z layers with the context of knowing that it's 2 layers down, because this right here is slightly tinted than this. And it's not just on this square. If you look in, or if you look in here, it's as the hill goes down to around here, there's a bit of a blue tint. It's not, this is tinted a different color in this. It is a natural gradient going off. If I zoom this to the same zoom as the next one, we'll see what I'm talking about as that blue disappears because we went down 1 Z level. That's all we did. The exact same picture down a Z level. And we see just how much blue tint there was on this. And I want to point your attention to right here. So you can see what I'm talking about, how there is a gradient that almost creeps up the hill. So you're able to clearly see the hill through multiple Z layers and probably gauge about how many Z layers there are between you and whatever that tile you are looking at. You're able to get all the information graphically really fast. Whether or not you knew it is a different story, but enough playing, you would eventually, it just becomes like breathing. It becomes happenstance. And we see here, as I was saying before, it goes over, and then 1 down still looks slightly blue. If we go down 1, we see even that goes away. So we can see the blue creep all the way up and creep all the way down. Fantastic. Now, they did a picture where they had 2 rooms. This transparency effect that they're doing because they have different layers, like how they're doing the C multiple Z level system, they were thinking about, and I hope they kind of stick with, because I love it personally, the fact that instead of having just an outline, guess that Pokemon style, of the furniture you're building, you can see the furniture already. And I'm assuming, this is an assumption, they didn't declare it directly, that you can tell the material, because that looks like that. Whereas that still looks like wood. I don't think that's per furniture, because all the furniture kind of had a different color. So I'm guessing that you can even tell the material while it is transparent and being placed. Like I stated before with the workshops, this saves you a click, because if you didn't know, if you build something, you can look at it afterwards, and the title of it, like if you hit Q, T, or U, depending upon what you're looking at, the name of it, the title would have a different color corresponding to the material used to build it. So this, if this is working the way I think it does, saves you having to click just to make sure. You'll notice if something looks wrong before it has been built. Transparency, fantastic. Like I said, they said they were testing it out. I'm hoping they keep it. It's really good. They are, near as I can tell, rendering the way they're deciding to do metals versus jewels and other such non-veinous material. It's fantastic. The metals, I believe this is raw copper. This is either raw copper or this is hematite. I know hematite's more reddish, but hematite also is known for a rusty color. So this may be hematite, or this may just be native. That's where native copper. And as we can see, we identified in the walls, and it has stripes, it has veins. It looks like it's natural stone there, but you can tell that if you mine it, there is a chance you get metals from it. May not be enough in that particular square to identify it. I don't know if this will stick around for long, but also if you notice, it has a slightly darker outline, just in case mayhaps you're not noticing that there is iron there. Maybe it's only on a corner piece. They gave it a darker line to maybe help make it stand out, as opposed to, I don't even know what jewel this is, some yellow goldish jewel, where instead of using the striped vein system, because they don't tend to go in veins, you see them just in the wall. And again, the thing that is separate between it and the natural ground is a darker line. But the natural terrain still looks the same color. It looks like there's something there that's natural, or I should say that is normalized. There's something there that matches that layer's stone. And then the jewels are something added onto that. I don't know if this is a separate sprite that, like, where he takes the jewel and it loads in the layer of material as a background, or if just this picture is really lucky and it's the same type of stone as what he uses. But the stone blends in with the other stone, the material stands out. Stone kind of blends in with the other stone, and then you have a layer on top of it. I'm not 100% how they're implementing that. Either way, that is already very fantastic and makes it stand out graphically and is faster and easier to understand without needing to be explained. And then lastly, this is really fantastic. It's going to be a bit before they get in the coding to make creatures take more than one tile. That's not a thing that they're doing right now. However, graphically, they are trying to represent it. So we have this, I want to say cave ogre? I believe it was a blind cave ogre. Blind cave ogre. Why am I not saying this? Blind cave ogre. He is in this square, but because they realized they could go outside of the square a bit with their sprite work, he is able to look tall. He's able to look as if he is above 1 square in height. This means 2 things. 1, coupled with the isometric viewpoint, he definitely stands out from the background as he's able to be above the background. If you have a dwarf or another creature behind him, he would look like he's looming over the creature. Very, very amazing. I don't even know how to describe that. Just subconsciously, even people who don't watch my channel should be able to, if they don't understand that's what they're understanding. This conveys so much more information with what sounds like so simple in hindsight. In their post, and I will have a link to it in the description below the video, they mentioned the biggest they could pull off, which they try to do for a dragon, was the majority of a 3x2 square for a dragon. Left, right, and then up 1 for both things. If I'm doing the math right, what this means is they're a little over halfway to the right and to the left. So it centers in the middle. They go a little half right, a little into the a little more than halfway into the left, probably around those 19 pixels. So if it's 32 plus 38, basically a creature should be about 70 pixels wide at max. And then they said they could go mostly 3 wide and 2 high. And we already saw that the 2 high meant that I'm taking the Metalsmith as the extreme. They could go 19 pixels into high. So the creature dimensions at max are possibly 32 and 19, 41, 51. 70 pixels wide by 51 pixels tall. And for those of you who are new to Dwarf Fortress, I don't know how to convey to you how much of a game changer this is for how awesome and amazing a lot of these creatures will look and how easier it will be to pick them out from the background. If you have a dragon, using that as the extreme, if you have a 51 by 70 pixel creature fighting a dwarf or a horde of dwarves, you're going to look like a horde of dwarves around a giant dragon. Some of them will be behind, some of them will be in front. It's going to look like there's an actual fight going on. Not just, oh, here's a dragon here, and here are dwarves. It's gonna look like they're around him. No, it'll look like here's a dragon and it'll look like there are dwarves climbing on him. Well, not, they're not gonna have animation for climbing, but they're gonna be in and amongst it. You're gonna see like a leg poking out from behind the dragon. If there's a dwarf in front of it, and if he's tall enough to overlay the feet of the dragon a little bit, they'll look like they're surrounding and actually mobbing onto him, as we know the dwarves basically do, because no matter what weapon you give them, they're going to hop that dragon. They're going to try to bite it to death, because that's the way the dwarf be. That is the way the dwarves do. So that brings us to the end of this. I'm going to be linking everything I can down below. The music is from Simon Swer. If you were unaware, he is fantastic. He does Dwarf Fortress music, as well as a bunch of other things. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to typecast a man. But if you found this, if you somehow got something out of this that you didn't quite understand before, give the channel a thumbs up. If you don't give the channel a thumbs up, it's okay. You can go back to trading with the elves. The rest of us dwarves don't hate you to your face. And of course, give the channel a subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you guys next time.